Timecode Cowboys, the best podcast of all motherfucking time.
How's it going, man? Long time no see.
It's going good. Just kind of hanging out today, and I got done with a phone call with a production that I'll be doing in the fall for Shakespeare, doing a little directing of that.
Nice.
Some excerpts, and I was on another call with a friend from the UK who apparently wants to get me in his book series, and he wants to write a film with me. So
nice.
Keeping busy.
It's been a busy morning.
Yeah, I was bringing my dad up to speed this morning because we were hanging out, and obviously it's been a while. I mean, we've kept in touch almost kind of like on a pen pal level, where we had that one trip in Detroit like in 2021. But other than that, I was kind of describing our relationship sort of like creative pen pals, where Rob does a really incredible job of like staying in touch with a wide spectrum of people. I mean,
good.
I feel like I would like to think our friendship goes beyond just the sort of like check-in level that you might have with certain colleagues, because we've had some pretty deep convos about art and life before. But yeah, in brief, I want to hear your side of this.
Introduction.
Yeah, but to give an introduction, it's
the introduction.
Yeah.
Okay, so we knew each other from my CalArts days, which are slowly becoming further and further back in time. I think it was around 2007, 2008. Danny had an ad for Bulletproof or Bulletproof Pimp or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And
I think the title was Bulletproof Pimp, and then you wisely, a la Sean Parker in The Social Network, told me to drop the pimp and just keep Bulletproof. Like the social network, the Facebook, just Facebook kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So,
I think it eventually became a Lonely Order.
Yes.
And what we wanted to do kind of like a Clint Eastwood type of Dirty Harry, just a short film where the hitman is very serious, going about his business, very clean and organized, and then he has a crisis of conscience with his most recent hit, and he wants to get out of the business, but he can't. So it was very very ambitious.
Definitely
wrong with that.
Yeah.
But and then we just tried to do some other things. You had a casting call, and I brought some of my CalArts friends over to your parents' house, and
now
do you remember?
All coming back.
Yeah. Because I kind of went out on a limb, even posting, anything at CalArts, because I still a junior in high school or something, but I felt that the talent pool available to me was pretty limited.
There.
So I'm really glad I did, because that's how I met Rob. But I mean, not to we do, but I mean, like, it's a testament to I think
stayed in touch,
the quality of the friendship, but also like Rob as a person. Like I do feel that like we have this like relationship where that kind of can transcend different eras, where like that was the seed to knowing each other, but it's kind of crazy to look back at that because we've grown so much. But I do feel that like there's something still elemental about that connection, which was like premised on art and film. And I remember the first day I met you, I was just like in awe, because here's this very kind of, learned, scholarly, artistic man who's like seen way more movies than me and is name dropping Gore Vidal and all this stuff.
I was very impressed with you too, because you come from this tri-generational filmmaking group. I mean, I was just looking your grandfather up on Wikipedia, and over the holidays, I saw Twilight Zones that were directed by him, and Columbo, and just so it's just this is great that you guys are keeping this going. And when you have kids, I hope the Smite tradition will continue with filmmaking.
Hopefully so. Yeah. The apple does not fall far from the tree.
So, Rob, I wanted to ask you, are you from Michigan, or what got you back to Detroit?
I'm a Detroiter, and I grew up in Grosse Pointe. Kind of Grosse Point Blank. I didn't become John Cusack, but
You're not a hitman.
yeah, not a hitman.
Yeah.
No, but I have
That's the
played a
affinity.
couple of them, and yeah, I went to Grosse Pointe schools, and was really kind of an artsy fartsy kid, and actually my dad was instrumental in me being interested in filmmaking, because he had a one of those bulky 1980s camcorders that
The
you'd plug into the
VHS,
VCR,
yeah.
VHS, yeah. And so I acted for him and all that, and then
Oh, that's
just
cool.
kind of kept going to Interlochen Arts Camp, where I got a great education, kind of just being in music and being in performing arts. And
You are truly a multi-hyphenate. Not to cut you off, but that
yeah.
was another thing this morning when I was kind of giving the show notes for my dad of like, Rob is a jack of all trades in the truest sense. A lot of people kind of bill themselves as like Renaissance men, but you are truly kind of like every craft you've touched. And he's an incredible singer. He sang opera for a while, right? Like you introduced me to your friend in Detroit who was you were touring with.
Yeah, he was well, he still is an opera singer, and he did train me, and I had a few music teachers, and the I always call it a rock opera, what I'm working on right now, Nixon King, which is just kind of a smattering of politics and passion and all that stuff. So that's where I get to really cut loose.
Couldn't be more relevant right now.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, you're sort of in and of yourself kind of like a one-man studio. I was also telling my dad and brushing him up on your YouTube channel and everything you've been doing. So I've always admired your scrappiness, because I think you find a way. I've always admired you for the fact that you'll get out there and roll up your sleeves and try something out, which I think it makes sense given your background too as a performer, that it like lends itself to the practice too of like I don't know. I think there's something really like inspiring about that, of just like, you have the resources available, figure it out at the budget level you have, rather than waiting for some sort of idealized scenario in which everything's going to line up. So,
yeah.
Well,
When I came home from California the first time, from film school, it wasn't quite my cup of tea. I just wanted to get going and, do films and, get crews together. I managed to snag a job at Detroit Public Television, which taught me a little bit more about cinematography, but I just made some connections there. And we were doing the Live at Home Hitmen, which was kind of a parody of my own existence at the time. And, I was writing Nixon King and coming up with all that stuff. So it just, it was a real creative fount. And
Rob, I was going to ask you, is there a nice sort of close community there, of sort of the filmmaking arts community? Or is it a little scattered?
It's scattered. I mean, I've never lacked for finding talent. I will say that. And I think, a lot of people, want to make good art. I struggle to stay plugged in. I mean, I'm kind of an introvert, so that it just takes time to do it. But it happens.
Yeah, for sure. Well, exactly. I mean, I remember even when, this is again a testament to sort of how our friendship has spanned time, and that like I think in the course of knowing you, we've probably had about at least a dozen, if not more, sort of begun and abandoned projects and ideas and things. And so, I went and visited Rob in Detroit in 2021, like kind of, mid-pandemic, but when the vaccines were rolling out and things were starting to open up again. And I drove to see you guys in Chicago when you were there. So that was a pretty epic trip. And it was funny, Rob, because I hadn't really looked at any of that footage that we recorded literally in years. And like, it was one of these things where we had our trip, we rolled on a lot of material. It was a lot of Rob kind of taking me around town, and it was some like Detroit B-roll, but also about his past, and we hung out and we recorded things. But Yeah, it's such a time capsule too. I don't think I even was aware that at the moment we were recording, just it being 2021 and seeing the world kind of like unthaw like that. So
you'll have to see.
I went
a lot of material.
Yeah, I went back to the archives. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. So I mean, obviously having you on the pod was going to happen regardless, but I'm glad that it also lit a fire under my ass to revisit this material, because now I'm like, we got to talk off the show to figure out what we're going to do with this stuff, because it's like, it's good that we got that in the can. It's just like, it's crazy how time flies.
Yeah, you
literally got a tattoo that says it.
It does, because it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that whole period is like, it's such a trip.
It really is. Yeah. And I mean,
it's almost surreal. Like, did that happen?
Yeah. It feels that way.
It does.
But I mean, so Rob, again, multi-hyphenate, very talented, somebody that I really trust in terms of like artistic instincts and story. I think one of the big things we've talked about, there's pressures that come with like feeling like you have to, one up or get to a certain level at a certain age. And there's a lot of kind of this like inbuilt pressure in the arts of like having to reach certain metrics or milestones.
From my perspective, my parents have always been very supportive. They just, it's just not the same as having, a parent in the industry. And, they have tried to open doors, and I, have walked through a few, and, I've been lucky enough to, have stellar education, at Harvard, and, work with Damien Chazelle before he was Damien Chazelle.
I was going to bring that up. I didn't know if you wanted to mention DC or not.
Well, he is he was a nice guy. He was just very interested in his work, and I knew I knew his first wife, Jasmine McGlade, and she was very instrumental in kind of kicking his butt and getting his stuff done. And they did Whiplash as a short before it became a feature. And
she was
he just
kind of his polyplat like Peter, because we were just talking about Bogdanovich and how he was pretty horrible to the women in his life, or just like transactional, and kind of once he was
I mean, it's just, but you're young, and you're just trying to make a name for yourself. And when you trade, I hate to say trade up when you're big, but
no, it's true.
You just he's of course had a phenomenal career, and I think I admire his passion and his willingness to kind of dive into himself as a musician, because that's what all Whiplash was about. Sort of his own music genesis and all that stuff.
That's kind of a core team. I know you've told me before that it's like the crop of people there. It's like that's a pretty specific crowd. So you obviously the class you're with, you remember.
It's visual environmental studies. It's called something else now. That's what it was called when I was there. And they were really into a lot of experimental stuff. It was not a business film school. Right. It was just, we're going to give you a camera and you can shoot what you want to shoot, and you do what you want to do. And really to be a success, you kind of have to do the networking and do the the power moves and whatnot. So it's
so upside down now too. It's like it's not.
Well, yeah,
the landscape is so weird.
Not to interrupt your flow, but like I know we've talked about this in regards to just the way like things were seemingly promised to be more democratic with the, and it is great. I mean, look at what we're using right now. Like collectively, the equipment we have is probably less than $300. So it's like, not excluding the laptop, because Mac is fucking insane. But I mean, it's like all this stuff is available. It's great, but there's like that sort of looseness and accessibility does not translate necessarily into the other aspects of the
Well,
industry.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
like it's just not
the old adage, right?
Yeah.
You could give people something to write with, but if they
Of
don't have
course.
something to say, it doesn't matter.
100%.
So yeah, but I get your point though.
Yeah.
It's become much more democratic because it's opened up doors for people that didn't
Yeah.
have the resources to, like your YouTube channel or this or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it all comes down to what it is you want to
It's
say.
the stuff we've talked about too of like signal to noise ratio,
Yeah.
where it's like there's just more to cut through now. It feels like. Anyway,
Yeah, it's not a landscape that you can assess because it's a moving target, you know.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's like, again, you have to be kind of business minded now with regards to film. Like there's a very kind of like strategic kind of commercial play I think you have to do. I mean, there's exceptions to that, but it's like, I
think there's something to be said though, Rob, for that.
Yeah.
A more open experimental experience in film
Yeah,
school.
yeah. I think it brings people who wouldn't necessarily think that they were going to be filmmakers
Exactly.
into it. And, a lot of people, some people were cross majors, they got into it and they got into writing or whatever, but it was a way for people to kind of express themselves. And it was a very eclectic program with animation and theater and just a lot of different
It's actually rare because so many programs where there's a film and a theater program at a school, they don't which always baffled me that they don't really interact with each other, and that you'd think it would be serve both camps,
yeah,
for actors to be able to do theater and also be in somebody's film.
Yeah, it would make sense to kind of cross-pollinate like that, but that's not
Oddly,
always
it
the
doesn't
case.
happen, that much. So that's encouraging to hear, at least in the program you were in.
Yeah. You also ended up, not to skip ahead, but just in terms of your resume and some of the milestones in your career, like I think the other moment I remember us connecting and having some sort of creative summit in person prior to Detroit was actually coming to visit you in California when you were living in Pasadena, which is close to where we are now recording this pod. And you had that job with the law firm, right? You guys were doing like deposition recordings.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a media firm called Juris Productions, and they associated with lawyers to make Dateline style documentaries to aid the lawyers in their cases.
Wow.
And they were the bosses were a husband and wife duo who had worked for NBC, and they they found a niche that was working for them, and they had a lot of clientele that could just make use of it. So that was good. I got to do a lot of pre-editing, and just be sort of the office PA, but
you get your hands in a
worked
little
my way
everything.
up to kind of an associate producer role, and just learn the business that way. And it didn't pay too badly, so it was a way I could be in the business and
still make
be
a
in
living.
California.
Yeah, it's just one of those things too that I feel like I remember when you had that job, it just kind of broadened my horizon that there's just so many like, there's, again, it gets to this thing of like pressure to be like making it at age whatever, or like in the type of job that on paper is impressive. But then you realize that with a film degree or any sort of facility whatsoever with the technique of film and the science of filmmaking, like that applies to so many different jobs.
It applies to tons of jobs.
I think it gets to that like Werner Herzog quote where he's like, it's way better to have an experience working eclectic jobs and doing different things that feed your life as an artist and a filmmaker and a storyteller rather than this very strict kind of prescribed path.
You and I had this conversation for some of the jobs that you'd had over the years where it wasn't exactly what you wanted to be doing, but you were working in film and cutting things, and it's like, hey, would you rather do that?
Rob, did I ever not to digress, but I will take a moment here to tell an anecdote because I think it's worthwhile. Did I ever tell you about the job I had where I was the in-house videographer for like a male hair clinic in based in New York that just treated they treated male pattern baldness and alopecia. But what I didn't grasp at the outset, because I was like all of 20, 21 years old and just desperate for a buck. And I think I might have found them on Craigslist, which kind of checks out given the unethical business model they had, which I'm going to get into. But yeah, basically what they would do is they take men who had receding hairlines or had gone through botched hair transplant surgeries, because, you know, there's a whole kind of market, or at least I discovered this as I was working there, in which like people will lowball clients because they're desperate to have a sort of panacea cure-all solution, only to then come out with it worse than it was before, and their scalp's messed up and they have like scars. And so this place kind of vacuumed up all of these damaged men whose self-esteems were already crippled by this experience, having hair loss and then having gone through botched transplants. And they offered this service that was dotting their bald heads with a tattoo machine to make it appear as if they had a buzzed head, a la like a Vin Diesel or somebody who's or a Jason Statham who has decided to buzz rather than like actually so. But it looked really, it did not look good, and it was like this sort of weird kind of like shared sort of delusion that they were casting a spell over these patients and sort of like making them think that this was going to save their lives, fix everything. And so I would do these testimonials with these guys where it was like before and after, and I just had a little like Panasonic.
Weren't there some success stories though?
Kind of, but it was pretty bleak, and it was just like I think I was again kind of blissfully unaware in the beginning of exactly what it was, but when I started to grasp exactly how just kind of shitty the business model was. I don't know. It was funny.
Yeah, well, that's kind of that's great. It's just staying in the business, but just learning. Being able to observe people. I mean, that's kind of the great thing about life, and just becoming a director is just getting that kind of life experience and just knowing how you can. You can see the vulnerability of certain people, and one of the things that I liked when I was doing a job that I didn't particularly like, being a dishwasher at a restaurant. I sort of said, well, how am I going to take my power back? How am I going to make my film degree work? And I got my boss to play Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, in the Hitman show. And I had another friend who, played Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
And my boss was like, well, I haven't acted since high school. I mean, I'm flattered, but but with makeup and the lines, he just was a natural. So it's always fun when you can involve people who may not necessarily feel like they're actors or their crew or whatever, but they just rise to the occasion.
Yeah, and what a nice diversion from the regular everyday life, right? To get to express yourself and be part of something like that. That was cool that you pulled them in.
Yeah, and I think that's what has always struck me about your work, Rob. Not to gas you up here, but I definitely feel like I'm a kind of Rob scholar in terms of his YouTube output, because he's been persistent in kind of revisiting the same characters and themes, a lot of them Batman related. But I think in Batman you find stock characters and types to play, much like much like anybody has a mental image of a JFK or a Lee Harvey Oswald. Like, I think what's interesting about that is when you take somebody who's either completely non-professional or has been out of the game for a while, and you tell them they're going to play Alfred or, Bruce Wayne. Like, most everyone has some sort of foothold on that. So I think it's interesting because then you kind of get their take on it, which is cool.
Yeah. And that's kind of fun too. Cause we were doing, I did a few takes on it. One was in college, and that was with, just people auditioning in Boston. and they did an incredible job, and we got a good cinematographer, and we just kind of did the hell out of it. And then during the pandemic, people weren't really doing much in Detroit, and I said, well, let's do kind of the continuation of that story. And I involved my music teacher and a couple other actors.
Yeah, he's so good. He has the gravitas. He really brings it.
Yeah. He and there was another actor who played Robin, who is out in LA now. And he made his mark, and went with it. And we were working security together, and he was just like, well, yeah, I want to be in movies, and I want to do this and that and the other
well,
thing.
I make
so
movies.
Like, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And they he got he got his experience. And
how long have you had your channel, Rob, or on YouTube?
oh God, it's 20 years.
Yeah, we're gonna give it a big shout out.
We will.
Yeah.
Two-Face is what it was called something before, right? Like you had the channel name different.
It's youtube.com/RPY.
RPY. That's how I always knew it. Okay.
We'll include that.
Yeah.
Don't forget in the show notes or something.
Yes, RPY. Shout out RPY YouTube channel. Hit it up. Yeah, I've always been watching your work. There were some years there, of course, where we maybe had lost touch for a little while, but I was still always clicking the links and keeping an eye on things, and
No, I know, and but I love that what you were saying earlier, Rob, which is I had that different podcast that I started a few years ago called The Crew List, but the whole idea was for young people that are coming out of a film school program or who are just have an aptitude for it and want to do it. All the different jobs and all the different kinds of jobs you can have. They don't always have to be a traditional industry job. Right. There's other ways to take a filmmaking education and use it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, right. And there's no set trajectory, especially now more than ever. It'll happen in due time, I think. Yeah.
We need to talk about Bernardo Bertolucci.
Oh gosh, speaking about due time, yeah. Okay, so do we want to pivot to The Last Tango? I think we could get into that.
Well, at first I want to know, Rob, what made you pick that one out of a?
Yes.
I don't know who knows how many you might have had in your head.
And if you don't mind giving a brief little Last Tango Paris year director just for our listeners. So
1972, Bernardo Bertolucci with Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider. It's about a widower.
Vittorio Storaro.
Great cinematography. Yeah.
Yes. A widower, American expatriate, is mourning the death of his wife by suicide, and he runs into a young Parisian woman, and they have a torrid affair with no names in a secret apartment, and the two of them go back and forth, but mainly Brando being the aggressor and the abuser of this young woman who is quite naive about the ways of love as a 19-year-old would be. And then she's also the subject of a documentary by her fiance, who is also sort of using her for his own purposes and doesn't really see her as a human being.
I was going to say he's totally, an abuser in his own way, actually, in a very different way. Yeah.
Just and the sexual politics of it are very troublesome, probably even then, but 50 years later, even more so.
They are.
Of what Bertolucci was kind of doing in order to get these performances. And
there was no intimacy coordinator on that set.
No. Well before the time of that.
Yes. I wanted to jump in though real fast because I'm reading about the movie too.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was based on something that Bertolucci had a dream or fantasy about meeting somebody and having sex with somebody without ever sharing any information or names. And that's where the idea started. And he was writing it with Dominique Sand.
Who eventually was unavailable, right?
Yeah, she was pregnant
And
or something.
I think he
couldn't
wanted
do the movie. And she was in one of your grandpa's movies.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Not one of his better ones, unfortunately.
But it's funny too, because the more you study sort of the show notes / sort of footnotes of like its production history, the more you realize how, like it with any film, but especially one like this, it does feel like lightning in a bottle, and the cast was perfect. And Brando is like that role could not have been anybody else.
Although he was not the first choice.
I know it was Trinity Jean from Conformist, who eventually passed too, but it's like it really works with the combination of elements that's there. And I think, the fact that it is born from like Bertolucci's kind of like
Weird
perverted
fantasy.
sex dreams is all the better. Because the film does, I was watching it with my girlfriend who had, it has an outsized reputation. And I think now especially it carries this baggage with it that affects viewership, where it's like people come to it knowing about the butter scene and knowing about, the sort of ethics or lack thereof on set. But it's like, if you're just watching as a piece of work and receiving it, like it's really interesting. And I think it has this dreamlike incoherent quality that is seemingly sloppy, but actually like really hard to achieve, I imagine. And there's some really like choice sequences in there where there's just some images that stick with you. I mean, I have copious notes in my phone of things that were sticking with me, but it's such a purely visual, sensual film. And I guess, I don't know, I just was kind of like, you don't see anyone go for broke like that anymore.
No,
like literally like
it's
go for broke.
interesting though, because your reaction to, because
Yeah.
I'd seen it years and years ago, but your reaction to just now describing that, knowing now that it came from sort of this fantasy that Bertolucci had, which was really pretty short. It was one thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like they had to figure out and back invent a plot.
Oh,
how
for
would,
sure.
How would this person get to that situation where that could happen?
Yeah.
Which is why it can feel a little
Disjointed sometimes.
I think this is just purely my.
But I think it's better for it because it does have this kind of quality of, of it being sort of this kind of fever dream thing.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for it. It's not a
yeah.
traditional sort of,
No.
3-act storyline, although the beats are. But
anyway, we're hogging the airtime. Why did you come to the table with this film, Rob? What made you pick it, and why does it? Yeah,
I thought it was just something that was, just the power of the performances, and Brando's making his comeback after, he had made a few flops in the 50s and 60s, and this was him coming back to form. And then of course The Godfather came out around the same time.
Yeah.
So it just showed his versatility as an actor, and I think it was something that probably it was sort of semi autobiographical.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the butter scene was sort of where Schneider felt violated, Brando felt that he had been violated.
He said that too.
He said he'd been raped by Bertolucci.
they didn't speak for like
and,
years and years after, right?
Yeah,
like 17 years or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But I think that it just you just see kind of his breakdown, and then his rebirth as playing Paul. He sees Rosa, his wife, this corpse, and he just has this wonderful scene where he monologues about why she did it, and that they shared or she shared she had a lover while still married to him, and just to seeing him being nasty and being tender, and it's just stuck with me as somebody who
It is sort of a
loves the
shame,
arts.
that period, really the back end of his career. It's like he was such an amazing actor and really didn't do a lot of films at the end there. I mean, we have, luckily, The Godfather we have.
Well,
but
it's
he
funny.
just kind of
but this and The Godfather were kind of an artistic peak for him. And then after, at the end of the 70s, he's playing Kal-El's father.
Yeah,
in Superman.
Whoever's going to write him a check.
So-
But it's interesting that you pointed that out, though, because it's like the performance is really, it is. He's really,
Well,
really
I
good.
think one of the reasons too, he probably didn't speak to Bertolucci, and I mean, some of this is me extrapolating what I read on Wikipedia and whatever, but I know just through the grapevine of cinema lore that this is up there as like a film in which director and subject were kind of intrinsically tied, you know, and it's like, it's so much about him. It's so raw. Even the stuff, the seemingly throwaway lines in the beginning when that woman's cleaning up the tub where his wife committed suicide and she's kind of giving his bio, the kind of like sort of tasteful exposition off screen where she's talking about him going to Tahiti. Like Brando did that. He had a whole chapter in which he kind of fell in love with a sort of romanticized version of escaping reality. And so like for him to not only bring himself into the role, but then, like you said, Rob, to kind of be okay or, you know, manipulated by Bertolucci to be in a situation in which he was exposing kind of just his ugliness and his decay. And there's a nastiness to it too, that I think like if you're a celebrity and you're sort of, you know, more career minded and you have a team and you're looking at this role, it's like, well, we can't have that scene just can't, you know, that
Tom Cruise would never do this movie.
Exactly.
No, he wasn't afraid to
go there. And that's like that in and of itself. I think I respect the gumption that brought him to that point to be that raw. You know, like that's
something
crazy.
too
like,
that just struck me riffing off what you were saying. If you think about this being sort of an experience that Bertolucci felt was really personal, I could see where a sequence like the butter scene, for instance, where neither one of them really knew what was going to happen until they were on the day, and I think that's just him pushing things more into the way everything played out in his own fantasy in his head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know.
Which again, that's why the movie feels like it kind of has these pendulum swings of emotion, but like it is ultimately better for it, and it feels like this.
Yeah, every
really
once in a while, it gets out over its skis.
It does,
and then you know. But there's something about that risk taking that's I mean, that's why
just so totally absent from film.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and the other thing is that there was something else on Wikipedia where in the original script it was supposed to be a boy that he was.
Yes, I read that. I was like,
and
they don't. There's no other that's it. That's all that they say about it.
Yeah, but Schneider, I wouldn't say she was androgynous, but you know, you could in some ways.
There's an argument to be
made.
An
argument to be made. You know, what does Bertolucci really want? And you know,
Plus
Brando was famously bisexual.
Exactly.
And, you know,
exactly. And that's the kind of history that I think carries over into the performance that like is very interesting to me. That it's very the barrier's pretty thin between the character of Paul and Brando as a person and the history he brings to the role. But like the themes of this film, it's like youth and age and playing with fire. And like, look what happens by the end. She's completely turned this, you know, he's a broken soul who's like literally collapsed. And she's the one who pulled the trigger.
The whole conceit about having no knowledge of each other is also
exactly.
One
That's
way
the
to
downfall.
Kind of get away with murder.
Yeah, for sure.
Literally.
Exactly. Yeah, which in a way, you know, you could read the film too as him wanting.
He wrote his own obituary.
The death wish is tied with the sex desire, and it's like this kind of it's this purging of like not wanting to be himself anymore.
So go out with a bang. Basically, was his plan.
That was the plan. Yeah. It's a fascinating movie. There's so many layers to it, and the fact that it not only was successful in its time, but made
I didn't realize
it made like $100 million at the box office.
Yeah, and Brando
in 72 money.
This is where they might have wished the other actor had taken the job because I'm sure we all read the same thing. He had 3% of the gross.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, which is a tidy sum for 96 million.
72? Yeah.
Yeah, that's 72 money.
So that's what happens when you're coming to Brando with your hat in your hand.
I mean, do you remember at the time it being marketed because of the controversy and the X rating as like that helped its sort of
Well, they
stock.
certainly use that. I do remember that.
The forbidden fruit.
Exactly.
Like, that you can't see this. You shouldn't see this.
Midnight Cowboy was the same deal. But
Right, exactly. That becomes a marketing ploy to kind of be like, whoa, what's happening in this film? But yeah, I mean, it's just full of these. It's like a prism, and I think people see it differently in different light. Yeah. But I don't know. I was really quite moved by the end. I think I began it kind of in a state where it's like, you know.
Did you know it was? Did you remember that?
I didn't know. I didn't know it went there, and I think I also
I didn't mention
there's something to be said too for form and the artistry of it, and Vittorio Storaro's like an incredible cinematography really just brings you in, and there's that sequence at the end.
It's beautifully shot.
God, in that dance hall with all the light and like when they start, it's just it's so like that move from light to dark. By the time that whoever's judging that competition kind of outcasts them, and Brando like moons that woman, and then they're sort of in this dark corner when she says it's over, and it's just this beautiful. It's like so painterly, where they've just gone from being kind of drunk and buzzy and happy to kind of this dark corner of this dance hall, and it's like just the art of composition and staging. Like there's just so many elements at play in this movie that like really kind of enforce its
there's a lot to see there.
Yeah, there's so much. And I think
don't forget the score. Don't forget Barbieri.
So good. I was listening to it on the way over here today. It's just it's so emotional. It's so emotional. And
he's Italian.
It gives me goosebumps. They might have been the first film, at least in my knowledge, to have shot that. I forget the name of that particular bridge. It's the something Barquim like bridge in Paris that's now become a kind of shot to death location. Like it was in
the one with all the locks.
No, it's the one with all those columns, the pillars where he's walking in the beginning, and there's all these beautiful shots where the train goes overhead it. And then at the end, when he links back up with her, it's kind of this like visual motif. But that's in like Inception and all these movies now. It's been like shot to death. But it's funny that the visual language at work in Last Tango in Paris is on it's on another level. I mean, it really is. The colors are so amazing.
It's painterly.
Yeah. But a great pick, and definitely one that I'll be thinking about for a while.
Now, you must have discovered it in school, obviously, because I'm the only one old enough to.
I think it was CalArts. I think I'm trying to think if it was a Harvard or was it CalArts, but it was definitely something that stuck with me for many years.
Yeah, from when I saw it I was a kid. I shouldn't have seen it, but there's images that are still in my head.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I think I saw that. And what year did Don't Look Now come out?
71 or 72, probably around the same time.
That might be okay.
Which also kind of a psychosexual film. Yeah, skews more towards horror, but it's definitely also a film that deals with European decay because it's set in Venice in the winter. And I think Paris in the winter is really interesting. I read something on Wikipedia too that the birth of this was Bertolucci's sex dreams, and then walking around Paris in the winter and feeling some sort of narrative emerging from the colors and the cooler tones. And it's like, if anything, doing these sort of deep dives where you like close read a film and then read about it after is like just sort of the nerd standard for me. Like I'll do that for anything from, Lilo and Stitch to fucking Salo, 120 Days of Sodom. So I apply it to every film.
That was another CalArts film that was we just had to grin and bear it. Watching it.
It's a tough one. There's not a lot of moments of reprieve in that film at all. So I actually just rewatched it recently, which was quite a journey.
With Luna?
No, just by myself. Yeah, just perverted old me watching the movie. But what was I getting at? No, I think just because it was born from a place of images and dreams, like it just reaffirmed for me that, there's such a premium, especially at least the I don't know about you, Rob, but at least at UCLA, I had a quality education, but the 3-act structure and the sort of hero's journey got so drilled into my head that I feel like it's taken twice the amount of time for me to kind of unlearn things that are not actually really helpful when it's coming to a story, because everything has its own shape. And, it's just, to me, it's just a continual reminder that Bertolucci came at this from a different angle. David Lynch comes at things from a different angle. But
if you strip it down,
it's
a
a
lot
story.
of
It still tracks.
Those sort of main hurdles and beats are there.
For sure.
They're massaged and sort of implemented in a way.
And the editing helps. Yeah. I mean, I think it has this dreamlike quality too because of the way you move through spaces. And, think of how many characters are kind of behind frosted glass in this film. And it's just kind of a beautiful motif of people not connecting. There's a lot of scenes where Brando's either behind a wall or someone's framed behind a doorway, or there's the beautiful sort of glass of a door disguising someone. It's it really, that stuff has narrative value too. And it's you don't get that in the you know, How to Save the Cat screenwriting handbook. That's just, it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just a reminder to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
follow whatever your weird North Star is. Even if it results in something fucking crazy, at least you've been true to yourself. So that's how I feel about this film.
Well, look, we're talking about it in
Yeah.
2025.
I know.
So
But yeah, I really enjoyed watching this and giving it my full attention. So thank you for choosing this film. Do you have any other, I guess we're kind of closing in on an hour here, which is usually sort of our cap for these convos, but was there anything else you wanted to touch upon in terms of, I don't know, early days, background?
yeah, even what do you,
or even what you're working on now?
What's
What
current?
I'm working on now really is getting Nixon King, my rock opera, on its feet. We had a performance in January, 8 performances actually, that went pretty well in Detroit. And we're going to be doing a staged reading of it to get it videotaped, because unfortunately the taping of it at as a production was lost.
Oh no.
But this is a story. It's an alternate history with Martin Luther King in a dangerous situation. You know, he is run afoul of a judge that wants to put him on a chain gang, and he you know, appeals to both then Vice President Nixon and then Senator Kennedy for assistance. And, you know, ironically enough, Nixon is, you know, somebody who is a lot stronger on civil rights in his career. And he, you know, would be expected to kind of help King out, but he, you know, and he has kind of a friendly, cordial relationship with him, but he as Kennedy, you know, fear alienating racist Southern votes. So he sits on his hands, and then in real history, Kennedy, you know, as people persuade him to get King out, and you know, console Coretta Scott King, his wife, and you know, Reverend King's father, you know, becomes a Kennedy convert, because, you know, a lot of blacks who had been Republicans, you know, up until you know, that period of time. So my look is if, you know, King's in jail and he's waiting for release, and Nixon sneaks in, and he, you know, he's tricky dick, and he's trying to get a deal out of King, you know, and then he just starts talking about, you know, himself and his love life and his politics and all that stuff, and they kind of clash because it's so surreal. You know, this is the time for a real quick decision, you know, help me out or not. And Nixon just doesn't get the humanity of the timing of this. And then we have some other characters. We have the prison guard who's a thorn in King's side and kind of trims him away from nonviolence. And we have the devil, who's also, you know, a beautiful woman, and she's trying to tempt him well. And Kennedy is there for a quick cameo to, you know, sort of say, well, you know, even if I do help you out, you know, civil rights is not going to be my priority. So there's a lot going on in it, and you know, I'm hoping to, you know, get it produced further, hopefully take it, you know, cross country or just to New York or whatever. But we're really trying to get some buzz around it, and we did get some buzz, you know, some local papers, and Fox News was interested in it.
It's great, man.
So that's sort of what I'm working on now, and I have a few other projects, you know, just sort of in the hopper about you know, local politics and horror film, and, you know, whatever. So I'm keeping very busy.
Well, we'll make sure we put links to the YouTube channel.
Yes,
I
was going to say, and anything related to Nixon King. And
if that's the title too, you know, anything we can do to help.
Yeah,
you know,
to help
get the word out.
That would be great.
To help blast it out there. And you have a SoundCloud that's pretty deep with some deep cuts
that has
too.
the songs, that has all the songs on there.
Cool.
And
So we can throw up the link for that as well.
But we should maybe that be our playoff music.
I want to hear more about this horror film. Do you have any log line on this?
It's kind of hush hush right now.
We don't want anyone to steal
I'll tell
it.
you.
Yeah,
let's-
don't,
I don't want to spoil
We'll
it.
do it off the.
I will tell you more about it after the show.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. I think that's perfect.
We can sidebar about that.
All right.
Well, Rob, it was lovely having you on, man. Thank you. You were a scholar and a gentleman as always. I hope
You got us watching a film I hadn't seen for a long time.
Yeah. And one that I honestly, was on my queue to revisit, but I don't think, if push came to shove, this was the moment. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And good luck with the other projects. Here,
I'll be
and
sure.
Same to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.